Okay, so I've got my files combined now, and you can see there, I've got the two levels lined up, I've got the room there, ready for some more things to be stuck underneath it. So, okay, so what I thought I might just show you first is how you can use the underlay option to see things from different levels in the current floor plan that you're working on. Have you had a look at that underlay option? It's a pretty common one. So in your view properties, you'll see, if you scroll down, you've got the first section there is graphics, and then the second section, if you just go a little bit further, is underlay in your view properties. And it'll have the first option there, range-based level, and you can see there mine's set to none. So I'm going to change that option to level 1. And now I can see the walls in grey from the story above. Great. Yeah. You've got the choice, so you can choose levels above or below the one you're working on, and then you can decide whether you want to be looking up or down. So it's a really useful option when you've got multi-storey buildings and you try to line things up. So I can see there pretty clearly that some of these walls, maybe for example these ones over here, are missing from this level. So I'm going to go and just open up level 1 and select those walls that are missing, and then click copy to clipboard, and then I'll go and open ground floor again, and then click on that down arrow under paste and choose align to current view. And that will put a copy of those walls in the same place on this level. So that's a really good way of lining things up in the same place. One option you need to watch out for in Revit is this option to extend walls across different levels. Because I'm sure you all realise you can set the top of the wall to go up higher than the next level. So I could extend this wall up to the level above, and that would achieve almost the same thing. But what you'll find is a lot of the newer tools, particularly in Revit, are set up not for that approach, if that makes sense. So here you can see I've got walls that are split by the level, and if I'd done it the other way, if I'd extended this wall up across the levels, it would still work, but then you'll find that many of the other tools, particularly things like this, you've got this displacement tool, which is a great tool, but we can't even show you that if you don't do the walls this way, if you don't split them up according to your levels. And there are lots of other structural things as well that rely on things being split according to their levels, so it's a good habit to get into, putting things according to their level. And so here I'm just tidying up the heights of these walls and making sure they all join. And then I can continue on. So even in the 3D view here, I can see that the walls below this this unit as well don't necessarily line up. So I'm going to select them with, well, they don't continue onto the ground floor. So I'm just going to select them in this view. That'll do. That's enough, I think. And then again, copy to clipboard. And this time I'll use a slightly different option. Under paste, I'll go align to select levels. And then I can just choose ground floor from the list. And that will copy those walls down directly underneath onto the level below. And then again, I'm just going to check that top offset option and make sure that is 0, so my walls are all touching. It's got a base offset there, -500, so I'll fix that too. And then you can see here that these walls overlap the ones below. So when you see issues like that, sometimes rather than trying to find out where the problems are, you can just select all of those walls with a window, go to filter, and then just turn off everything except for walls. And then in properties, just type in 0 for the base offset as well as the top offset. So just making sure all of the walls begin and end in line with the levels by making sure that the base offset and the top offset are both 0. And that's a really helpful thing for what I'm going to do next, because when I go to work with the stairs, I need to make sure now that the level heights are correct. So if I haven't got the walls tied to the levels, it all becomes a much harder thing than if the walls, once they're connected to the levels, they'll be much easier to adjust. Okay, so then I've just opened the section view, and in the section there you can see that my levels are showing with their heights, and then I can adjust the height. So do any of you know the height of the first floor from the ground floor? You don't know? Okay. Have you got any drawings that show? You should have something. Well, we can always look in the drawings here. They'll have it. So let's go and have a look. No, well these ones have got elevations in this set. Is that the same building? I think it must be. Yeah. Well, this looks like 3.6, but I don't think that's the same building. Yeah, yeah, and that's a different building, I think. So, yeah, so I'm pretty sure it is. Well, it's 3.6 to this floor level. Let's just see if there are any others that they give us. Yeah, it looks like it's 3.6. So that's a pretty decent decent change in height. Okay, as usual, they haven't put any levels on the floor plan. So I think we just have to go with that 3.6, but I'd assume that's right. So, okay, so back into Revit. Oh, but also, sorry, looking at those drawings, we can then just do the old school things that you would always do in the past to check the stair heights before you go and make your stair. And this is what you should be doing, even with Revit, which is going to do a lot of the working out for you. You still need to think about things the way it's been done traditionally. So if we've got 3.6 as our floor-to-floor height, we can then look at this drawing of the stairs and see how many stairs there are. So you should always do this. Whenever you've got to make a stair, you need to know all of these things, and so you want to count the risers. So to count the risers, you count each tread and then add 1. Okay, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and then 1 more. So 20 risers. So before I even do this in Revit, I'm just going to be a calculator and look at our floor-to-floor height, which we know is 3,600, divided by 20, gives us 180. So we know that's a complying stair, so we can be pretty confident that's correct. So, so again, you can work all of these things out before Revit does it for you. Yeah, I'm recording this. Okay, so now I can draw my stair. So onto the Architecture tab, and I'll start off just using the Stair tool in a similar way to what I've shown you before, with the straight path. So clicking on Stair. Over here in Properties, it's got ground floor as my base level, level 1 as the top level, and then the desired number of risers is on 22. You can take that back to 20. And, now you can see there it's on 200 riser height. So what have I forgotten? Yeah, so I forgot something that I told you to do, but I didn't do it myself. I didn't change the floor-to-floor height. So I'm going to cancel my stair and then go back and look at the levels. So that should always be the beginning of your thought process when you're making stairs in Revit. Think about your levels first. So 3,600 should be the height for level 1. And let's say it's got a 2.4 metre ceiling. I think it probably is. Then we can make this 7,000. Sorry, 6,000. Okay, so then back to ground floor image and the stair tool.
Straight one?
Yeah, I'll start with straight. Yeah.
So all of the walls on the ground floor should be up to level 1?
Yeah. Okay, so with the straight stair tool, I'm just going to start in the middle of this staircase by eye, and then draw.
Oh, should I have my photo in the background?
Yeah, you should. Yeah. So it's a bit hard to read, but basically there I can see it says 10 created, 10 remaining. But it's very hard to see. It's in grey, just it's about here, near the up. It is there, but it's hard to see on the projector. I can see it on my screen here. So I'm just going to click there, and then click on the middle of this step, and then take it all the way to the end as far as it can go. And then I'll go back to the floor plan without the image getting in the way, and it's much easier to see there what's happening. So that's the first thing, and we can use this then and even just do things like stretch out the sides until we get a message like this. So if you get a message like this, it's often best to cancel and then try again, and maybe try not to go so far. So we can also select the landing and then extend that out. And then I can again select the original straight stair and go a bit further. So now I can do the same with the second flight. So again, just selecting that, and I can use those grips to go as far as I can. But again, if you get a message like this that's a warning about the landing, then it's often best to cancel it and try another option. So again, the problem here is that when I stretch that side down, the landing loses an edge, if that makes sense. So there's a line here that when I stretch that stair will get deleted, and that's why I'm getting this warning. So again, we can select the landing and then try to get rid of that line ourselves. There we are. This would hopefully do it for us, and then it might let us stretch the stair. No, it doesn't want to. So it's all because this is an automatic stair creation tool. Oh, of course, yeah. So there we are. So that's working now. So I've got it to work, and I can eventually get the stair to be pretty close to what we want, but it's still never going to be perfect. Okay, so that's the first thing you need to understand about this new stair tool. When using that run option, you've got these basic preset shapes, but they'll only get you so far. So I'm going to delete this one. I'm going to make it again, but in a different way. So I'll delete that. Yeah, generally. I'll just show you one last thing though. There's this sort of in-between option. You can always select these things, and then up here you've got this option to convert and then edit sketch. And that will give you something similar to what I'm about to show you, but it's still not quite as good. So, yep. Yeah, yeah. Right, so you just might not have gone far enough when you were making it initially. But that's okay, you fix that. But I'm going to do it again from scratch, because this method, again, you could make it give you this stair that we want, but you'd have to convert it and then edit it quite a lot, and that's a lot of work. So I'm going to delete all of that. Again, just want to make sure it's clear though to you that you can use those run options, and we did use this for the last project, to give you different things, and sometimes if that's what you want, that's fine. But in this case, again, it's not, so I'll delete that, and I'll just show you one last thing because it just annoys me. I've seen so many people, not just from this college, mostly from Ultimo actually, where they're meant to be better at the technical things, they do this. I don't want to say it's the lazy younger generation, because it's also the older people doing this, but it's a new thing. This would never have been done even just 10 years ago, because you had to make everything yourself. But now that you're given these tools that give you things automatically, you see people making this mistake all the time. They look at this option here and see, great, there's an L-shaped stair. Yippee, I can just click on this. No, thanks, Foyer. Okay, and I've got my L-shaped stair. But really what I'm trying to say with all these tools is that you need to know in advance what you're trying to make. You can't just rely on the program to give it to you. And can you see a problem with that stair? Yeah. Yeah, that's right. There's no landing, but you can do that. You can have a stair with a winder with no landing. That's what we're going to do in a minute anyway. But what else is wrong with it? Yeah, well, pretty much, yeah. So you can see it's starting to slope. The winder begins here. And it's gradually, these all are at a different angle. So they're changing all the way along and going all the way to the last step. So every step there is at a different angle. That's totally wrong. Right, and the reason is it's not meant for an L-shaped stair. If you read what it says, it actually says it's for an L-shaped winder. And the same with the next one, the U-shaped one. So if we click on the U-shaped stair tool, again, that gives you a U-shaped winder. But again, it's got that same problem. So again, it's mostly my guys at Ultimo who are meant to be, really good with the technical stuff. And sometimes they still just miss out on these things, which they should know. But interiors people, even though sometimes maybe they think that you're not meant to be as technical, when you get into that fine detail in your interiors, you're actually more technical sometimes than even the architectural people. So you also need to look at these things. And when you go into your cabinetry and things like that, you'll sometimes do a lot more detail than the architects. So you should also be thinking about that. So the run tool's not working for us, these automatic ones. But then you'll see at the bottom, the last tool there is Create Sketch. And that basically takes you back to the old stair tool. And that's what you need to look at. If the automatic ones aren't working, use Create Sketch. Then you need to draw these three things to get your stair. So you've got boundaries, risers, and then finally the stair path. So I'll go back to ground floor image, and I'm going to draw over this sketch. That's right, we're tracing, that's right. So I'm going to start with the boundaries. So that's the first option there. I'm drawing a straight line, and I'm just going to trace over my stairs. And the trick with your boundaries is to think of them like stringers. So the stringer would stop at the step there at the end of the landing, and then there'd be a new angle for the stringer continuing from that point. So always when you draw your boundaries, begin and end them at the end of each flight. And so there I'm drawing a second line at the same angle, but just another boundary line. Then I come back to the left and then begin my new flight at that point, and then continue along all the way to the end of that flight. That's my first boundary. Then I'll draw another one on the other side, again finishing at the end of that flight there, and then I'll continue up to the wall. Now this will be a curve in the end, but for now I'll just do an arc, not that hard. Yeah, just draw an arc, yeah. So then I'll just draw in the shape I want. That's actually pretty good. And then back to drawing a line, just continue on to the first step of the next flight, and then draw again one final line to finish that flight off. Okay, so I can actually do the rest in the ground floor plan without even needing that image now. So I've got my boundaries done. I'm going to draw now the risers, which is the next thing. We've got the line tool, and we'll just draw over. No, not yet. So we're still going to do the risers. So, yep. No, so that should always be a riser to connect the two boundary lines. Yep. Pretty much, yeah. But I'm just going to, instead of tracing them, what I'm going to do is measure off that drawing to see how big they've drawn them. Because I'd say they haven't drawn them correctly. They just don't look right to me. So, yeah, they're all a bit different. Oh, so that's why I've got this ground floor plan without the image. You need that. That's yeah. Yeah, you can't just do it midstream. You can always just cancel it and then do that part again. That's probably the only easy way. So here, I'm going to use offset. Instead of drawing all those lines again, I'm just going to go to offset and then type in 250 for my offset distance. 250 is the minimum tread. But I can then just go along picking each of those lines. So there. Now, this one is a funny extra step at the bottom. And, oh, now I've done one too many as well, so that's okay though. I can easily just delete that last line. And then I'll draw another riser. For the next flight. And again, it's probably easy now to switch to my other ground floor plan without the image getting in the way, and offset again, 250. Just go on picking each of those lines. Then, before I do the last one, I'm going to check, yeah. So you can see here, drawings that you bring in like this often will be a bit inaccurate. So we're just going to maybe use a bit of judgment here. So 1, 2, 4, 5, oh, what's going on there? No, that's all getting a bit hard. So maybe, yeah, just to keep that edge that I've already set up, maybe it makes more sense here, rather than showing you how to set these out from that edge after I've made them. Again, that's all going to get a bit technical and difficult, so I'm going to delete all of these risers and then go back to make a new riser and draw a line in as a starting point, and then show you that we can set out that 250 distance from this floor line. Because remember, that floor is essentially your last riser. And so then going back to the riser, to offset, I can just then keep picking them this way, going the opposite direction. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 risers in that flight, so that's what we need. How's that lining up now? Yeah, so it's never going to line up, but that's because the base drawing's inaccurate. So now I need to put in the boundary, or not the boundary, so the last riser for this first step. So I'll draw in again a new riser using, maybe I'll just do offset to start with and pick this line and then draw some arcs. Again, making sure I'm using the riser tool. So drawing in an arc to get that that first riser shape. So it's a bit hard to see when the image is there, so I'll just switch to do it on the view. So that's how it looks. And again, back to riser, arc. So that's pretty much it. So I'm going to finish it and I'll see. Oh, now sorry, there's one I've missed before I finish it. I've got to put in a riser to connect those two boundaries at the end. Oh, and I've got to draw a stair path. So I'm going to draw the stair path, then from the midpoint of the first step, and then go up to the midpoint of the last step in the first flight. And then I'll do another one from the midpoint of the first step in the second flight to the midpoint of the last step in that flight. And then I might draw in a little line from the end point of the first step path line at the same angle, and another one coming from the other stair path, again at the same angle as that. And then to connect those two lines, we could draw an arc directly, but it's probably easier here to use fillet arc. and choose the 2 lines, and then by eye I can just place in my curve in a place that I think looks good. This is not for construction, this is just a graphical symbol, so whatever you think looks good, probably about right there. There we are. So now I'll try and finish it, and it's worked pretty well. There we are. Didn't work? Okay, I'll have a look in a sec. So in the 3D view, there we are. We can see it, and it's even got that nice step at the bottom with the stringer brought back properly to the to the edge of that step, which is how you want it. So I'll finish that staircase, and yeah, you might get a few issues with the railing on this one, but otherwise that's pretty close to reality. Yeah, so stair design's always an interesting one, but it's a good lesson in construction as well, because once you can design a stair and have it fabricated, you can design almost anything, really.